Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me first begin by congratulating the Honorable Minister Bulkan, who some weeks ago erected a monument in the center of Madhya. I am told that that monument is a symbol of the coalition's stewardship in government. Mr. Speaker, further I'm told that there is an inscription. There is an invisible inscription at the base of the monument that goes like this. This is what we have been doing, you Guyanese people, for the last 3 years. And this is what we would continue to do to you. Mr. Speaker, I am further informed about this monument that is the symbol of the coalition's stewardship of governance. Mr. Speaker, that the minister's intentions when he erected the monument was to give it a Patamonia name because he erected the monument in the land of the Patamonia people. I have started, since I started speaking, I'm speaking to your monument, which is the budget. Mr. Speaker, I'm told that he was distraught when he learned that the Patamonia people, they have no set of words to describe that erectile monstrosity. That is the symbol of... Mr. Speaker, so when you go to Lethem, you see the monument and you see the performance when you go to Madhya, and you see the monument erected, and you come back to Georgetown and you see the government in power, you recognize why I started by congratulating the Honorable Minister Bulkan for his foresight of the government's position. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the budget presented by the Honorable Minister a couple days ago, $300 billion, which is a number. Mr. Speaker, $300 billion means nothing if the people of this country have not received adequate services. $300 billion, Mr. Speaker, means nothing if the vulnerable, the poor, and the people that need to be developed economically and otherwise in this country, they are not getting that benefit. The other point is, the minister, last year, $250 billion. It means nothing when billions of that money goes back to the consolidated fund. So a big number means nothing because at the end of the day, the people, they are not getting the necessary services. Mr. Speaker, the minister in the budget spoke about, passed over the issue about the inefficiencies and the inadequate performance of the public sector investment program. Whilst he highlighted the inefficiencies, he didn't indicate to us what were the practical measures the government would put in place to ensure that those inadequacies and deficiencies are remedied so that the people of this country can get proper service. The minister, in his presentation, 99 pages, 4.5 hours, avoided, like the plague, to deal with the corruption, to deal with the mismanagement of public funds, to deal with the fraud identified, to deal with the wastage identified by the Auditor General in his report. I would hope that someone from that side would speak to the report when they stand up. Mr. Speaker, the other issue the minister neglect to speak about was the issue of reliable and cheap power supply. The speaker before me regaled us with what he expects businesses to do. Mr. Minister, the businesses would not be able to perform, they would not be able to produce adequately unless your government is able to deal with the issue of irregular power supply, the issue of inadequate power supply, the issue of expensive power supply. And the Minister of Business spoke about our businesses being able to compete. We will not be able to compete, Mr. Minister. At the rate, we will not be able to complete the inference. We will not be able to compete at the rate we are paying for power supply. And that is the reason why, sir. That is the reason why a man can bottle a bottle of water in Suriname and bring it to Guyana, and it can sell cheaper in this country that is the land of many waters. So when you talk about what you expect businesses to do, they would not be able to achieve those noble things unless and until we are able to deal with that fundamental issue. Mr. Patterson, when he speaks, I hope he will tell us without bluff what he intends to do regarding that matter. Mr. Speaker, the budget lacks lubricant. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as I said, the budget lacks lubricant. And if there is no lubricant, sir, there can be no stimulation. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the stimulation that is necessary and needed to stimulate businesses, to stimulate the economy so that we can progress, the measures are not in the budget. Mr. Speaker, and it follows, without stimulation, Mr. Speaker, there will be no pleasure. And that is the reason why, Mr. Speaker, the people of this country, on the 12th of November, they sent a clear message to the government by the score 63-38 that they're displeased with the performance of the government. The only set of people who believe that they are performing well is the 35 persons that sit on the government. Not the people of this country. The people of this country said they are displeased, and they voted overwhelmingly for the People's Progressive Party Civic at those elections. Mr. Speaker, they saw the Honorable Prime Minister Chinnepen. He left the corridors. I am told since that elections he has been distraught. He has a broken heart. I am told that he walks around and he mutters about Barrett taking away his girl whim. You know, because the displeasure, the people of this country showed how displeased they were with the government. And if you walk through the length and breadth of this country, whether among PPP supporters, PNC supporters, and if there are any left of AFC supporters, the citizens of this country, they tell you how displeased they are, how dissatisfied they are. And therefore, if the government want to be tone deaf and don't listen to the people of Guyana, don't adhere to what the people of Guyana is saying about how they feel. And so $300 billion without adequate service to the citizens means nothing. It is just a number. I'm repeating it for emphasis. Mr. Speaker, you know, the speaker that spoke before me, the Minister of Business, when he stood up, he said that he didn't come to perform. Mr. Speaker, that is the problem. That is why businesses are in this state, in this country. Because the minister, since he acceded to office, fails to perform. So I have no expectation, sir. I have no expectation for the minister performing in the House or out of the House, because the minister has shown us over the last 3.5 years that he is incapable, apparently, of performing. I spoke to someone not so long ago, Mr. Speaker, and they indicated to me that the minister is still finding his way. 3.5 years, and the minister is still finding his way. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Business, over the last period, there are 3 policy issues he has tied his success to. 3 policy issues. 1, the small business bureau and the small business enterprise. 2, the single window system. And 3, the 20% procurement for small businesses. Let me start at 3. Mr. Speaker, since 2015, the Minister of Business came to this House, and in some measure in his presentation, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Jordan, spoke to this issue. Mr. Speaker, just a couple of weeks ago, it took a non-lawyer to rebuke the minister, the Attorney General, and the cabinet with 4 lawyers that you could not apply the 20% procurement for small businesses unless and until you amend the Procurement Act. So for the last 4 years, the minister, it is for the minister to know that. The minister indicated it would happen in 2016. It didn't happen. The Minister of Business indicated it would happen in 2017. It didn't happen. He indicated it would happen in 2018, and it didn't happen. And so the chairman of the Public Procurement Commission was so horrified by the fact that the distinguished senior counsel attorney general misadvised and misdirected the Minister of Business to state to him that he could have effected the 20% procurement, when in fact the Small Business Act, as the chairman of the PPP stated, the Small Business Act is a junior legislation that cannot supersede the Procurement Act. Now I heard the minister somewhere, he has stuck it in, the Minister of Finance. He says that we will amend the Procurement Act to facilitate the 20% procurement in 2019. 4 years nearly, the old cabinet sleeping, misinforming the Guyanese people. Have the people believing that something will happen, when indeed they were incapable of doing it because they were misinformed, misdirected by the Attorney General. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is the single window system. That is the other issue that the minister ties his success on. But listen what the Stabroek News reporting on with the Minister of Business. The Stabroek News November 1st reporting on the World Bank report about doing business in Guyana. And listen what they said. Guyana has dropped 8 places in the World Bank latest ranking for the ease of doing business. Where is the single window? We have no window, and we have dropped 8 spaces. It has moved to a ranking of 134 out of 190 from a rank of 126 last year. That is your stewardship, sir. When you speak about what you will do and what you will do in 2019, the people take it with a grain of salt. Because whilst you're saying that, in your period, sir, 10 points, 8 plus 2, the ease of doing business. And if you go through the report, you will see top of the list is the inefficiencies and inadequacies of the Minister of Public Infrastructure, the issue of power, and the issue of getting power to do business in this country. So, you fail there. The other issue the minister spoke about, he likes to speak about, is the Small Business Bureau. Let me inform you, Honorable Sir, that as you speak, the Small Business Bureau is a cesspool of corruption, cesspool of discrimination and favoritism. As you speak here today, and I speak to you, at the moment, you have middlemen and brokers who are brokering loans for commissions for business people at the Small Business Bureau. So, Mr. Minister, I would ask you to urgently seek to appoint a commission of inquiry so you can see the skeletons. So, you go, Mr. Minister, when you check the list of names of persons listed, 2,000 odd people, some of those persons are there for years, and persons who have just applied because of the corruption, the discrimination, and the favoritism, they have already gotten their loans because they have brokers and they have middlemen to facilitate their loan. So, so the three issues, oh, you like Pontius Pilate, you wash your hands. I wash my hands. Oh, like Pontius Pilate, the minister washes his hands. It's the banks that give out the loans. But the nation must know that it is the Small Business Bureau that makes recommendation for the people to get the loan via the bank. So, Mr. Speaker, the failure in the three policy objectives the Minister of Business and Ministry of Business set itself. One, as I said, the 20% procurement. The government, Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC coalition government will be kicked out of power in 2020 without having the 20% procurement. Mr. Speaker. So, secondly, as I indicated, the goings-ons and the runnings at the Small Business Bureau. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the third policy objective. In all the minister's budget presentation from 2015, I noticed he veered off because he has recognized, sir, apparently the minister recognizes that he has failed in all three of these objectives. The Minister of Business spoke about the incubators, and he spoke about the industrial estate, giving the impression for those who don't know that this was conceptualized under him and his government. It's a People's Progressive Party civic initiative. That is the point. That is the fact. So, Mr. Speaker, the fact is, you know, last year when I spoke, one of the Honorable Minister of Business colleagues in the cabinet, who I will not name, indicated to me that, why do you rough up the minister? But, Mr. Speaker, I cannot give pass mark for failure.
No way.
How do I give pass mark for failure? All right? So, the judge, we have the World Bank, independent of the PPP. They said that since the Ministry of Business was conceptualized and put in place with a minister, we have slipped in that period 10 points in the ranking of doing business in Guyana. It means that because apparently some persons over there are not grasping what I'm saying. Let me listen what Starbuck News. I'm continuing. The lower the numeric ranking, the better the business climate. In 2016, the country stood at a rank of 124, but dropped 2 places the following year. So between the period, the Minister of Business with the Ministry of Business, with people, I suppose, being paid properly, we have slipped 10 places on the World Bank doing business in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, 8 plus 2 is 10. That is the problem. Apparently you don't know the count. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you know, the Honorable Minister, he is prone to gaffe. You know, one of the early gaffe the minister gave us is that the leadership and the ministers of the AFC, they are incorruptible. Mr. Speaker, if the minister repeats that statement sitting there, if the minister repeat that statement there, lightning would strike him today, the 3rd of December. He couldn't repeat that because we have seen the evidence that that was just. The other gaffe, the minister, the Guyana, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry had a confab at the Pegasus Hotel to deal with business environment, to deal with the issue of local content. I was a member who sat in the audience. And so there is great excitement from the people from far and near and far. Across the country, business people came. They wanted to hear specifically about the government business plan and program, the government direction for business, the issue of a local content in the oil and gas industry. And the Honorable Minister spoke for about half an hour. The only memorable statement that was reported by the media is that the minister told the business people that you must only pay attention to politics on election time. You all stay away from politics. Only on election. That is the only memorable line. Nothing to inform the business people as to how Guyanese businesses will participate in oil and gas, where the government is at regarding the issue of local content that is a burning issue. The other issue is, other memorable gap. The minister goes to Berbice, sir, and he is speaking to former Gaisuku workers. And he says to them, you all forget about sugar and prepare for the oil and gas industry. I mean, could you imagine? People who, what he didn't understand is that many of the
Could the honorable gentleman say where he heard me say, forget about sugar and wait for oil and gas in Berbice? Could he identify where and when that statement was made, please? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, in points of order, the particular issue is made known to the Speaker, and then the Honorable Member would resume his seat. So if the Honorable Member is questioning something, perhaps he should do that, rather than ask a question of the...
Okay.
If he disagrees with what was said, then the Honorable Member should make that known to the House.
Yes, I am disagreeing with what was said, and I am saying to this House, that what is reported is being reported by the Honorable Member as having been said by me in Berbice was not said by me, and I'd like him to either withdraw it or to show the source of that information that he is bringing to this House. Thank you.
I remember, Mr. Hamilton.
Sir.
You have heard the Minister. Now, the Honourable Minister is saying that something that you stated and alluded to him, he did not say. So I would suggest he's asking that it be withdrawn.
Mr. Speaker, I don't plan to withdraw, because the minister was addressing the Quarantine Chamber of Commerce, where you had several persons who had just lost their jobs in the audience, and he indicated there and then. And it was reported via the press that the minister indicated to those guys.
I remember, Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, sir.
The Speaker is working hard to attract your attention. I don't know why that should be so. Now, what we are dealing with, the Honourable Minister has said on point of order that something you attributed to him is inaccurate. And he's asking that it be withdrawn, or I dare say substantiated. So do one or the other, but don't
So,
spend
Mr.
a long
Speaker,
time.
could we ask for
around.
an adjournment that I could look at my phone and bring up because to substantiate it, sir, I will have to go to the media report.
I remember, Mr. Hamilton, you have 7 minutes remaining. If you wish to use it, if you wish to use
Speaker.
looking at your phone, then you will do it, and when time is up, I will call your time.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is, the Honorable Minister of Business, speaking to the Quarantine Chamber of Commerce, he indicated to those gathered that they must be prepared for oil and gas. What the minister failed to understand.
I remember, Mr. Hamilton,
Yes, sir.
the Speaker has pointed to you what the Honorable Minister has said. Now, what I would expect you to do is to treat with that. Either I withdraw it or I substantiate it. Now, if either of those is open to you, but what is not open to you is to do what you're doing.
Mr. Speaker, my conclusions from what the minister stated at the fora in Berbice at the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, at Quarantine Chamber of Commerce, was that the people of Berbice should forget about the sugar industry and focus on the oil and gas industry. Mr. Speaker,
So I remember you are withdrawing what you alluded to the minister, and you are drawing a conclusion.
yes, I'm drawing a conclusion.
Well, then you perhaps that should be made clear to the House.
Okay, I have drawn a conclusion, sir.
You have withdrawn the statement you alluded to the minister.
Yeah,
That is the question.
Mr. Speaker, to move on.
I
withdraw the
remember
statement,
you
and
withdraw
I'm
this.
saying
Yes,
that the
please.
minister,
Well, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the fact is, what the minister failed to understand is that there were many persons who were in the audience who already had a lot of gas from hunger that this government has put them through, them and their children. Because they were able, even up until this moment, to feed their children because of the policies of the government, because of the way the government went about shutting down estates. And so, Mr. Speaker, those were notable gaps of the Honorable Minister of Business. And so, Mr. Speaker, again, the minister comes and another set of gaps about the green economy. Where is it? What is it? Firstly, what is it?
You have 5 minutes remaining, honourable
Right.
member.
Mr. Speaker, the Stabroek News of August 26, 2017, Gaskin urges look beyond sugar industry at Berbice Expo launch. So I am taking back my statement because of you want the evidence is there. Look beyond sugar is forget sugar.
Honourable members,
Yes. Mr. Speaker,
let us try to keep it.
say that. Say that.
Please proceed, honourable member.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
Yeah. He didn't say that. He never said that. Mr. Speaker, The American media, Mr. Speaker,
No,
the American, Mr. Speaker, there's a guy, you must know the name. You know? The name is Jared Kushner. He is prominently placed and highly favored in the White House. We have in Guyana, but the media representation is that Jared dresses, travels, and gaffes. We have our Jared here. Prominently placed, highly favored in the greenhouse. He also dresses, travels, and gaffes. Nothing substantial, nothing to shout about, no progress, no development. Everything is in incubator. Nothing to shout about. There no progress, no development. Whilst we are in incubator, we have slipped 10 points on the World Bank doing ease of business rating. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have a situation where with a Ministry of Business for the first time in this country, one would want to think that business would thrive and do better.
I remember you have 2 minutes remaining.
But instead of doing better, businesses with the Ministry of Business is doing worse. One of the other things, Mr. Speaker, before I close, is you would not, when the minister speaks, he never speaks about big businesses. He always speaks about small businesses. There is no conversation about big businesses, direct foreign investment, whether local or foreign, come into this country. He's incapable of articulating that vision, that dream, and therefore he stays with small businesses where he's comfortable to speak, and even speak but don't act. Speak but don't act. And so, Mr. Speaker, the business ministry, deliverables and delivery to this country have been a total failure under Jared Kushner. Thank you very much.